What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer, and I heard there was new Egyptian God support. I did read it last night, so I thought I'd do a video on it. So first I'll go over objectively if I think these cards are good, and then I'll look at them contextually. So the OCG has unveiled, from what I understand, a prismatic God box. I don't know exactly what that means. It's just announced, so these are, I guess, are probably going to be like the promo cards from this box or something like that. So we'll check them out and we'll start the discussion. Because I've been saying for a long time now, you guys know I love Egyptian gods, like my favorite thing. So I'm always in favor of it. And then when Ra came out, I was like, it's good support. Obviously, you know, the Ra card can't be responded to and everything like that. But it left out the two other ones, you know. So it forced me to basically make a deck just for Ra. And you guys know I love that deck. So let's see what these other cards can do and go from there. This is going to be, they're calling it Superconducting Wave Thunder Force or Thunder Force Attack. It's a quick play spell, which is really cool. You can only activate one card with this card's name once per turn. This card's activation effect cannot be negated. So just like, I think it's called, it's not Hyper Blaze, Hyper Cannon, something like that for the Ra one that boosts the attack and or makes your Ra unaffected by card effects, and that can't be negated, so that's cool. Number one, if you control a monster whose original name is Slifer the Sky Dragon, destroy as many face-up monsters your opponent currently controls as possible. Then, if this card is activated during your main phase, you can apply this effect. Draw cards equal to the number of monsters destroyed and sent to your opponent's graveyard by this effect. You can only attack with one monster for the rest of this turn. So the idea here is going second. Well, obviously it's a quick play spell, so you can use it either time. And the advantage of going second is your opponent, you're going to board wipe your opponent and they can't respond to it. So it's better than Raigeki, obviously. But you have to go through the hoop of controlling Slifer the Sky Dragon at a specific point. But objectively speaking, this card's really good. It doesn't destroy like Dragoon. It doesn't negate and then destroy all the monsters, which is kind of unfortunate. So if your opponent has cards that are unaffected by card effects, that's not good. But let's say they have Appaloosa and, I don't know, Borreload, Savage Dragon, and Herald. All three of those. It doesn't have to be attack position monsters either. So all of those will be destroyed. So a triple or like quadruple negate board that you'll typically see can't be responded to, which is really good. So, and yeah, so I like this effect. And if you do it during your main phase, which would mean, right, basically going second, that would hopefully be enough attack to basically go for a game because you only attack for one more, but maybe not. In any case, it's good to have a board wipe. And if you're going first, it's good enough to, you know, your opponent won't expect it and they can't, it's not like they can respond. So even if your opponent starts to set up a board, and that's actually a really good point, is a lot of combos will put an early negate on and you don't want, and you'll be forced to basically activate an effect that you don't want to. But in this case, you can just sit back and wait till they put all their resources on the board and then destroy it. It's just, other than Dragoon, you can't do that. So if they summon a Predaplant Burn and a Conda, you'll have to fire this thing off, is basically what it comes down to. So that's good. Number two is God Hand Crusher, or Fist of Fate. And you guys saw in that little manga clip, obviously this is a attack from the manga. This card's activation effect cannot be gated, just like the first one. If you control a monster whose original name is Obelisk the Tormentor, negate the effects of one effect monster your opponent controls, and if you do, destroy it. And if you do that, negate for the rest of this turn the destroyed monster's effects, if any, activated effects from monsters with the destroyed monster's original name, if any, and any effects on the field from monsters with the destroyed monster's original name. Then, if this card is activated during your main phase, you can apply this effect. Destroy all spells and traps your opponent controls. So, I'm trying to think of the most important cards, like Galatea would definitely be one. Dengirsu would be a fantastic one for sure. What else? It's non-targeting, so this does get rid of Dragoon, fortunately. It can be good going first, it can be good going second, which is the good thing about both these cards, so they're objectively good in that sense. And, you know, having a Lightning Storm that can't be negated is also really good. But again, you have to have that setup of having Obelisk Tormentor. But other than that, I'm thinking of Eldritch. That would be a great one as well. Balinx would be another really powerful card. Alistair the Invoker would definitely be a pretty decent one to do that with. So yeah, there's a lot of good uses and a lot of, and even the Dogmatica card too, Ecclesia. I think that would be another great one. So lots of good things you can do with this card, and I like it. Again, you can't be negated, so it makes the God cards feel much more valuable when they're on the field, because you do have to go like -2 just to get it on the field normally. But that brings us to the last card here that was announced for the Egyptian God support, I should say. And this is Crossing Souls or Exchanging Souls. You can only activate one card with this card's name once per turn, so it can be negated, unfortunately. But during the main phase, immediately after this effect resolves, tribute summon one Divine Beast monster by tributing monsters either player controls, but if you summoned it by tributing a monster your opponent controls, apply this effect, which you would almost always do, obviously. After this card resolves, you can only activate one spell, trap, or card effect that is not a Divine Beast monster effect once per turn until the end of the next turn. So what that means is if you do it during your turn, you're fine, because you are basically only going to need to activate one effect during your opponent's turn, like with one of these cards. But if you do it during your opponent's turn, obviously you're not going to be able to do much during your turn in opposite effect. So it's pretty harsh punishment, to be honest with you, and it can be negated, but still, the way that it's flexible is really good. Is like, let's say your opponent only has 2 monsters, because you'll find that to be a problem, and actually it's great not to have to really use sphere mode anymore. That's kind of where it comes down to, because sometimes a card can be bricky because your opponent can only play 2 cards, and your opponent can play around not having 3 cards on the field, especially if you telegraph that move. So what does this mean? Your opponent technically, he's going to have a something on the board, and it's a quick play spell, so there is no playing around this. They're eventually going to have to deal with it, which is really nice. And maybe they do that in the form of spell and trap removal, but that not everyone's main decking spell and trap removal. So again, that's another great card. So those are objectively, I think all 3 of these effects are useful. They're modern effects, like it's they're not old-fashioned cards and aren't going to do anything. They're not niche for the most part. So now let's get into the problems of these cards. Well, number one, you got to be able to control specifically Slifer, specifically Obelisk in these 2 scenarios. So that means, you got to be able to activate the True Name, basically, and hopefully be able to stack these cards specifically. That's the idea. So I may do like a custom card type of thing, like I did with Ice Barriers, and just be like, how can these cards actually fit together? So it all is going to center around the True Name, because basically if you can stack your deck and put one of these at the top, whatever one you need for the most part, because they special summon, Obelisk and Slifer special summon, so it doesn't have to stay there technically to the end of the turn, although you'd probably want it to. But True Name obviously is going to add that Egyptian God that you need to your deck. So that's going to be the big idea. So if there's a card that can either stack something to the top of the deck or add it to your hand, that could create a lot of value. The potential I see in this is pretty good. The Egyptian gods have never been an archetype, so maybe this is a indication that it's going to be. I doubt these are going to be the only support cards we get, because none of these are searchable, and they need to be in some sense. So I'm trying to think in the context of what I use, like the Dark Magician. So the only reason I use Dark Magician with the Egyptian gods is because it's the only deck that you can consistently stack, so that's how you use it with the True Name. But if you can get rid of that and you don't need to use Dark Magicians to stack the deck anymore, and it naturally does that, this could be really good with the Monarch Eldritch deck. I mean, think of the potential of the Monarch Stormforth and everything like that. So that's honestly where I see this going in the future. Although I do understand when you're using Monarchs, you can't use Guardian Slime, which is okay to me because these effects are much more powerful. And I've been thinking these cards actually remind me, in a way, of Sky Strikers. Just quick play spell removal, and actually the fact that these can't be responded to kind of makes up for the ease of using cards like Widow Anchor, which only requires you not to have monsters in the spell and trap zone. So I feel like that's the trade-off. But I could definitely see this as a control deck, and then you have cards like, the Winged Dragon of Ra, obviously, which can just end the game altogether. So it is coming together in a sense. So from my perspective as an Egyptian God player, I'm very excited, and just hoping that this isn't it. But we'll see what comes of the Egyptian God support coming up, and hopefully there's more card announcements coming soon, and I'll do another video when that happens. Other than that, guys, that's going to do it for today, and I hope you have an absolutely wonderful night.